Is okay.
Yeah, you say it's live now.
We need the approval.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So we are here. We are live. And today the talk is going to be the three of us for now. The other two, we don't know where they are, but I'm sure they will join in soon. Yeah. Okay. Hi everybody. My name is Jai. I'm the moderator of the talk. Sujin, welcome, and Shir, welcome. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice
Hello.
to meet you.
With you all.
So like the order of the talk, we're going to kind of each of you have some time to kind of talk about yourself and your work, and then maybe after that we'll go into discussion, and then for some Q&A in the end. So like who wants to kind of go first, like Sujin or Shir? we haven't planned this.
I can go first, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I will just do a little quick general speaking about myself and about my work, and maybe after I assume that we can elaborate more on the different connotation and different meanings of my work, also in the context of the festival. So it will be really quick. But so my name is Shir, and I'm from Tel Aviv. I'm from Israel. I'm working there. I'm living here, working here. Was born and raised in Tel Aviv, and I'm a visual artist. I work mainly in video and sculpture, installation, and sound. But I was actually a musician. I was born to musicians also, and I had like a musical education, and I was a saxophone player for many years. And yeah, so it was something that was very. I was actually about to become a saxophone player professionally. I did it for many years, and I was about to study abroad, and I was in the path of becoming real professional in the field. And I had some kind of personal crisis. It's not like something so practical, but it was just something you can call it a mental phase, that it was just not enough for me to play, and jazz wasn't enough for me because saxophone player, it's more categorized with jazz music usually, but there are some other directions. And there was something missing for me in my art, in creating art, in just and I didn't know what it was. So eventually I became a visual artist. With the years I studied, and I understood that it's something that was missing to me, like the whole visual aspect of things, and the freedom to create different things in different mediums. And so it was very nice and inspiring to discover this world. But music didn't left me, so it's like it always like haunted me in a way in my works. So in my works till this day, it doesn't matter what medium it is, I always the works are always evolved with sound in a way, deal with the connection between sound and visual image, and the presence of sounds and sound, like regarding to visual mediums, and how sound function in relationships, in intimacy, this narrative that I choose to tell and explore always had some kind of aspect of sound in them. If it's a memory that is being told according to the sound that people heard, for example, or just the traces of sounds are always there. And I will just end my long speech now, just with a couple of words on my work. In the festival, I present recitative, which is a short video work, like a 5-minute fragment video work. that is basically showing a performance which takes place in the sky. It shows a man, an opera singer, actually a professional opera singer, 70 years old with a long career. And he's performing on an industrial lifting platform, which is a machine that is very connected to the world of construction and of skyscrapers and buildings and symbols of the modern society. So he performs a musical piece, which actually focused on a martyr's wish for redemption, for the be united with God, the desire to become one with God. He expresses it in his singing, and along the way with his performance, the other machines that accompanied his performance, they're reacting to his singing, and they're creating with him, the machines. They're creating this fantasy spectacle, or this fantasy world where machines are moving, reacting to humans, creating together a new performance, a new image, and a new soundtrack. So creates like kind of a new world. I also have some behind the scenes few photos if you want to see just how things are, how we did this, just to get a bit of a taste technically. Yeah. So maybe just I will try to share screen.
Yes.
And you can see. I don't know if it will work. Just a moment. Share screen. Let me know if you guys see something. Just a moment. Yeah, just a moment. Okay, do you see something?
Yes. Okay. Wow.
Okay, it works. Yeah. Good. So you can see like the main images of the work here. This is stills from the work, but okay. So here is this is the facility itself. The the lifting platform. I don't know if the picture really lets you feel the height, 30 meters high, and there are of course higher. This is like the image of Jesus, but it was just for initial motivation for this ascension of Christ and the feeling of above. And just to let you know, to have this sense of where we shot it. I don't know who really saw the work and experienced it, but visually you only see the sky and the machines. You don't see all these elements, for example, the buildings or trees. And this location actually is the site itself that we shot the work in. It's like a very basic rental place. There are some it's very common in every industrial district or area in cities, and this place has so many machines that you can choose from. So many, like a variety of machines that you can choose. Here is my singer, my poor guy, 70 years old man, was just phenomenal. I mean, I was scared also to be on one of these facilities because I have a fear of heights, but he was just so brave, and he also had to sing, so it was just so beautiful to see the sacrifice that he made to see, just to get you a sense of how it worked. It was pretty high, not just 30 meters, maybe even higher. This is the singer, and this is me with my photographer. We had to do it like kind of high to get the exact frame that we wanted. And this is another angle of the place. We had to use like some of my friends to work each facility and to work each machine in order to place it right. And we had also in order to create a frame, you needed like about 2 hours to just make everything in the right place. It takes time, every machine, to direct it to the exact point that you want to see, just that you want to place it. Yeah, so that's about it. Just a very quick description of my work in the festival. So I'm really happy to be here and to participate, to take part.
Thank you, Shir. Really lovely to have you with us. Great work, great work. Richard from in the chat, Richard says, "Hello, Shir. I caught your piece at the media preview. I loved it. The effort to bring the aesthetics together is awesome. Most importantly, I love the irony that comes with it."
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so nice to hear. I'm happy to hear.
Okay, so shall we move on to Sujin? We'll go into discussion after that. Sujin can present first, and then later, hopefully, the other artist is going to join us. I'm not sure what time is it at their place. Maybe it's quite late or something, or they confuse the date. Yeah, but it's okay. Yeah, we'll move on nevertheless. Okay, Sujin.
Yeah. Hello everyone. My name is Sujin Lim, and I'm from South Korea. Now I'm in New York, so it's like 2 a.m. Yeah, I usually do a site-specific project, something like performance or installation on sites, and then make it into a video piece. So I present it as a secondary documentation. But also for the last 3 years in Seoul, South Korea, I also did like permanent public artwork in town as well. But it's usually mainly I focus on the man-made environment and how it has influenced the people who live in the town or in that area. So yeah, the work that I presented in Power Play 2020 is the title is like oil painting, and then the piece I produced in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia in 2017. Yeah, then maybe I can also share. I don't have like the image of backside, but I have this some screenshots. Can you see now?
Yes. You can make the full screen. I mean, you can play the slides. Awesome. Okay, loading. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeddah is a harbor city in Saudi Arabia, and then like it's very close to Mecca. So like so many people for 1,000 years, like many people visited there as a tourism, also like commercially, and all this like very prosperous city in the region, and then so like culturally and about this architecture and then town, everything was like preserved very well for so long time. And since 1930, when Saudi Arabia discovered the oil, like it suddenly started to be changed. So when I visited there, this is the old town, which is called like Al Balad. And then you can see like all these beautiful architectures, but most of them are broken down. And then it's not. It seems like abandoned, but still people live there. So this is a screenshot of the video, and you can see some of the parts. This is from the archive video that I found, how it was before. Yeah, so what I did for like almost a month in 2017 in May was like painting this broken part of the buildings on glass in Al Balad. Like I went there every day and then in many different spots. I try to paint glass with a crude oil that is extracted from Saudi Arabia. And then I painted the broken parts and then try to make this illusion that looks like it's recovered.
Mhm.
Mm. Mm.
In the video, I remember there was a friend or somebody like telling you up, 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 down, down, down. Yeah, because the perspective you are looking at is different from the perspective of the video, right? So
Right,
she's asking you to mark the thing.
Yeah, it's like through the viewpoint from the camera, like I wanted to make the perfect image because it really can be changed from the perspective where you are. So
Mm,
when kids or people come behind of me, they try to see it from this perspective to fit it in. But also, it was important to make the perfect illusion through the viewpoint of the camera.
mm,
So the my friend who made this video, like he was helping me to make it. That's the scene that you are talking about.
mm. Yes, this one.
Yeah.
Mm.
So this is the last scene of the video, and then I tried to. Yeah, that was the first. Like when I was passing by, I didn't have a
Mm,
clear plan what I was going to do, but like just I was so shocked about this scenery. What is happening there? Like, what is this scenery? Why half of the building is just standing there, and then people are living around? That was
mm,
like first thing that hit me, and then I started this project.
mm,
So at the end, I tried many times on that site, and then at the end, we try to make this image.
Mm.
mm. Wow, it looks like it's restored.
Yeah, it's like the illusion. Yeah.
For me, it was very important that I made this painting with the crude oil that was extracted from Saudi Arabia because that's kind of the factor that um, made it happen. This destruction of the building happened because
Mm,
since the oil discovered, like people started to build the like high-rising buildings outside of
mm,
this old town because car couldn't reach to this old town, so they just expanded outside of the old town. So somehow, like bringing this factor uh, as the methodology to recover this building was, um, for me, like it was very important point.
mm. Actually, just a quick question. I was very curious, how do you even get your hands on the crude oil? Because the medium of the oil you use, like what you rightly pointed out, is very important, that you use the oil. And it's also interesting that the oil you use, the color is so similar to the color. It ended up being very similar to the color of the buildings. And so it fits really nicely
Yeah,
into the illusion.
yeah,
And also like the paint, the name of the artwork is a pun in itself. It's a play of words. It's like oil painting, like you're talking about the tradition of oil painting, right? But then later you're literally painting with the oil.
right, right.
Yeah, but how do you should get the oil? Like you mentioned before, say what they gave it to you or something?
Yeah, it's like there is the company Aramco, which is like the biggest oil company in Saudi Arabia, and then Aramco gives like small bottle as a souvenir for
Hmm.
the tourists. So
Oh
that's
my
what
God,
we then used it for painting it.
that's kind of a fucked up souvenir, right?
I know
It's
it's kind of
it's
irony.
kind of twisted in a way. It's like, oh, here is some crude oil as souvenir. It's so, I don't know, it's so capitalist and so
Yeah,
wrong in many levels.
yeah, it's kept like capitalistic and then like also like touristic, all these elements combined behind of it. Yeah.
And then you using the oil then to restore a building is kind of like subverting the whole dynamic in a way. Like you're trying to like kind of flip the power.
Yeah. For me, it was like a kind of circulation going back, like rewinding the time, but like this change has occurred because of this oil, and then I was rewinding it back with this oil. It was somehow like important thing that I could play.
It's interesting you bring up the notion of time too. I'm also going to Shir's work later in terms of the sound and time, but like oil itself has it's not just historical. I mean, in terms of the Anthropocene, the human time, but it extends even further back, into prehistorical time. I mean, like it being like the fossils of like sea animals and stuff becoming this crude oil that now we extract for human uses, right? So like this whole time thing is really interesting in terms of your work, like looking back at the history, reclaiming certain thing about history. Okay, I think let's go into our discussion. I think the other two are not joining us for now. So yeah, let's go into our first question. I mean, the thing is that I realized both of your works, there's something that is there's an element of kind of looking at things that have been lost, or people or groups that have been disadvantaged, like people who fall through the cracks, and therefore like the talk is called Through the Cracks. I mean, sure, you mentioned that like briefly that the whole symbol of the fork, what's it, the fork leaves? I mean the industrial things.
Platforms, yeah.
Platforms, yeah, and they are kind of like symbols of like economic development and stuff, but also at what price, right? Like you mentioned that there are a lot of people who kind of like have accidents in Israel or maybe in all over the world too because of this economic development. Even in Singapore, like we have our foreign workers, and we always hear of them living in very bad conditions, and also like having like bad pay, and also bad working safety conditions, and they get hurt and stuff. And if they get hurt and they cannot work, and then they are in a very bad place because they took money to kind of be overseas to work, and now they are in debt and things like that. So you explore that. Oh, Phumulani is here. Okay. Nice. Okay, yeah, but do you and Sujin? Hey, hi Phumulani.
Hello.
Okay, hi. Okay, he's muted. Can you hear us?
You are muted.
Yeah, you're muted. Okay. Hi, Phumulani. Okay, I think he's a bit lagging. We can't hear. You can't hear him, right? I think he'll figure out his mic. Yeah. So going back to the question, I mean, Sujin, you also talk about like the buildings being abandoned, the people in the old city living in such conditions and stuff. So would you want to kind of go deeper into how you look at such issues in your work?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think, in my case, first of all, I think it's really amazing that it's a world phenomenon, like the foreign workers, specifically in the construction field. It's happening. It happens also, obviously, in other fields. Yeah, I mean, in my personal connection to it was the year 2011, which I exposed. I mean, I did this work in like last year, so there was just something that was on my mind for a long time. 2011, specifically in Israel, was a year that you saw in the news so many articles, like in time, like in a distance of nothing, like every 2 days or something like that. You just see another person that fall to their death, specifically, not just symbolically. In my work, you really see the specific machine which the people lost their life on, that they were on it, working, and also like meeting this machine without being too dramatic, but it was a bit weird for me, like not so settling, because I knew what I was going to, with what baggage I'm coming to this. Although in the work itself, it's very hidden. I mean, it's there is criticism, and there is this symbolic layer, we can call it that way, and this reference to those accidents of people, foreign workers that were here, and what we're working in this field on those machines, and because really poor conditions, and also not very like the human aspect of it was also the social aspect of it was very, they didn't get any basic how you can define it, like they didn't have anything to socialize, anyone to socialize with, any, like, it's not just practical conditions, rights, the insurance and everything. It's also like in the society, they didn't find their place, obviously. And so it's a minority that just was very abandoned and very unaddressed. And I just remember in 2011 that I just collected the news. Like, I collected articles, and I didn't knew why, but I felt it. I felt the connection to it. I felt obviously the empathy, and something was very disturbing in that year specifically. So that for me was the connection to this specific subject in the work. Yeah.
Sujin, do you want to respond to the question?
Yeah.
We'll wait for Phumulani to figure out his microphone. Thing is not. Let me see. It's connected.
You want to talk? Try to talk.
Yeah, but I still can't hear him.
Okay. Then maybe.
It says that his mic is not connected, so it's probably like something about his hardware settings.
Now it's
on. Not. Yeah, it's on, but we can't hear him. I think it's his computer mic or something, like a microphone.
Let's see.
You have to turn on the microphone.
Okay, maybe I should just go on. Yeah. About the people in the scenery, like I think usually the way I work, I did this like site-specific interventions for almost like 10 years. I think initially when I start my work, I see scenery or landscape first. Why? What is this scenery? Like, I'm so curious about why this broken building is there, and what does it mean? Like that is my curiosity, and then that's the start of my work. But always whenever I see this strange scenery or landscape, there's something behind of it. Like it's not just scenery itself, it's always the scenery of life and scenery of the people. So of course, like when I walk around and then when I see this building, and then in the town, like there are so many people and then who live inside of the building. But Saudi Arabia is actually very wealthy country, but like there are so many immigrants, illegal immigrants from neighboring country like Yemen and Somalia, like because of the war and that kind of situation. So like most of them are immigrants, and like there's no electricity or water supply in our town. So it's kind of like so huge gap between the life outside of this old town and inside of this old town. That was very shocking for me, not only about the scenery, but like the gap between these two. And then I think that somehow I try to bring it up in the when I put this context of the situation. But yeah, in the like that's the mainly like the people and then like behind of the scenery that I wanted to talk about. Yeah.
Do you like this is also to share is, and I guess like how do you actually go about doing the research? Like do you how is your relationship with these groups of people? Do you actually have friends that are in this what we call like this the groups of people that you feature, or do you like interview them? Have you lived with them, or like in what way do you kind of try to relate to them when in the process of making the work? And do you how do you think it's quite important to you in the process?
Usually, yes. I think yes. But the I met many people there in town, and like we had like it was not directly for this intervention and this performance, but we were doing like public art project in the town, and then we met like outdoor living room, and then we invited people and to talk about it, what kind of like art practice we could make as a public art together. That was the initial meeting with people. So it's kind of like separated project. But one thing I believe it is important like what we could see and what we could talk and what we could deliver as a story is not something like maybe I could explain in this way. Like, the first work what I did about like some communal social issue in Korea was when I was outside of Korea. Like I couldn't see it like when I was part of this society, although I was belonging to it. So like this perspective about like how to see this situation in a new way, from the as an observer or as a like person who can understand the context. I think that was something I felt it was important when I was talking with people here. So about the experience or like how deeply I was the part of this society, I think that could be like a little bit of the my answer to that. So although that was like many meetings, there were like many months and meetings with people, still I believe that I'm not person who live there, right? I'm the person who is observer and artist and stranger to the society. So there's still like this kind of like thing I should admit. We can talk about it more in this situation.
Yeah, I can really relate to a few points that Sujin you talked about, because first of all, I just remember that like the question of how are we related personally to the people that we that this group of disadvantage or other groups. I think first of all that for me personally, it was also like kind of two different paths that were working in the same time. The first, specifically in my work, first of all, I feel that my work is the first chapter of a larger work, a larger thing. I think that I will continue it, and this is like something that is very it's still not the end of it. But when I talk about the two paths, when I talked about earlier about the collecting the news and just do a little research and reading and just be influenced from the news and just to be touched by subjects like that, and so that was one thing. But in a different path, and I think it's a very general motivation for me when I create art in general. Like when I see an image, or when I or when I imagine something like even this visualization of the ascension of Christ, or like kind of a visual aspects that are leading me to the ideas and to the creation itself. For me, this is the beginning, and something different things happen at the same time. But in this specific work, and so far when I create artworks, I don't start with kind of a specific idea, political idea, or like a statement of I want to touch this subject, or I want to touch the issue of discrimination or whatever. It's there in my mind, but I usually start from a visual perspective for something really like practical, something really optical, maybe even sometimes. So this is of course my personal process, but like the things are put up together in a later stage of the creation in my process. And just one thing, another thing that I thought about just when Sujin talked, also I personally haven't met a lot of foreign workers. I met some. I didn't talk to them like and really develop a deeper conversation, which is something that I'm very intrigued. I really connected to what Sujin said about this position of, first of all, it's a privileged position. I'm aware of this, the artists that are creating something. And also in my work, this protagonist is like the semblance of really the white man sings opera for the bourgeois. And it's very in a way, it's comic even, like it's really, it is self-aware, but I think this is something that's also very interesting and connect to what Sujin said about this outsider position, because you just for me you just you're putting a spotlight on something, you're showing something through art, and it's not I can't like really get out of this privileged position, or just I know my place. This is like what the big message that I'm trying to, or like my point. But I think it's really interesting, this position, that how to be like inside of a situation or to be outside of it, and to create from those two perspectives. It's
Yeah.
a different thing. And even just maybe one connotation of, you know, where I come from, obviously, is a very, very deeply conflicted place.
Mm.
And I also personally have so many issues with this, even regarding to creating art, about conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, or you know, the main thing here. So I don't. I really. I'm always confused, and I'm always, you know, going through this movement between being in, being out, seeing things from within, or just getting away and see things. And yeah, it's also a subject that really keeps me motivated and keeps me thinking all the time.
Hmm. Hey, thank you, Shir. Thank you, Sujin. I mean, this is like really interesting points that really the whole positioning as an artist in relation to the work and the people we speak for, or the issues that we speak about, like being the insider or being an outsider, and how do you then how do you then also kind of not just the positioning, but also relate to yourself as an artist then in terms of your responsibility, you know, and also some of you brought up the concept of empathy. I mean, like you said, you read this newspaper and you felt a lot, and empathy definitely is kind of very important in the works and that you create. And so what do you think is the responsibility as an artist to also, like you say, be self-aware as your privileged position in a way, at the same and to check ourselves in, to not, because sometimes it's easy to to research all this and then later like become a bit exploitative in a way, that we make art. And so how do you then kind of negotiate this relationship between the artist and the issues that you encounter through empathy and through keyly through the notion of empathy and responsibility, I guess. Okay, I think I can hear Phumulani now. Hello?
Hey.
Oh,
Hi.
Hey. Hi.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
we can
We
hear
had
you
a,
finally.
we had a power cut in the morning, so it just happens on random days. A power cut, so yeah, I couldn't connect. Hence, then I tried to use the phone. The electricity just came back like 45 minutes ago. So I'm sorry about that. But
Nice.
yeah, you can continue from where you started. Then I'll respond as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I'll back to the question. Like, it's just basically about how we relate to ourselves as artists, and the responsibility of ourselves as artists, and the empathy we have to the people that we speak about.
Yeah, well, I guess I think it's something that you maybe touched on previously around like ideas of activism, or an artist as an activist, or a social worker. It could point to those kind of directions where art making directly has a more social impact, as opposed to lending necessarily like to aesthetic values alone for just to experience or to change perceptions. So I think, for me, what is interesting is that responsibility of, if an art object or an art project has those kind of levels of engagement, be aesthetic, social, then the dynamism it's more greater and wider. The audiences can engage on different levels. Both with the people that are dressed in the work, and also people that are like receiving or consumers of the work. So yeah, for me at least, maybe an artwork or the responsibility artist needs to at least have a leverage of ways that an art project or an artwork engages, which can lend in kind of different ways that audience perceive it. The beneficiaries or the people that are interested in the work are more touched through social impact, if I may say something like that. Yeah.
Sure, and Sujin, do you have anything to add?
I you
No, go ahead.
social impact. I think I don't know, like I think there are so many different ways that we could bring social impact through art. Especially, I have been somehow like struggling in a way, like I I I I I did something very similar work in Korea as well. Like there are like all these broken buildings, very similar scenery. The middle of Seoul. Like Seoul is like all like huge city, one of the biggest, like eighth biggest city in the world, I think. Then skyscrapers, everything, and then in the middle of the city, there's like small town that is all the broken buildings around. And when I saw this scenery, I was so shocked. It was the same. Like it was right after 1 year after I did this water painting project. Then what is happening here? Like I cannot believe what is going on here. And then what I have been working for the last 3 years is that we try to get funding and then make one of the broken buildings into like really recovered and then become a like place for the people who live in the town, so they can use it and then they can reactivate it and then make a like space for like community and art and all different things can happen, because this town was planned to be redeveloped 15 years ago, but the company was bankrupt, so they couldn't continue. Like 70% of the residents were kind of like displaced, but still like there are still the residents who live there. So I don't know, like I somehow wanted it happens in real, not only as an illusion of inside of my artwork. So that was the trial what I wanted to make it happen in the form of art, but maybe it can bring like more social impact in a way. But I don't know which one weighs more and which one is like the way that I could continue. That is also important to think. Not only if it is like realistic or like direct influence to the world or not, but also like if it's something I can do it, I can continue in the world. That is also that I'm like holding as a question in my practice.
Yeah, it's quite interesting you brought up the word like maybe illusion or maybe fantasy. That's kind of the power of art, isn't it? Like is that I mean the whole thing about art being activism, I mean art as activism is a whole big topic in itself, and like whether art can or should enact social change and all these kind of things is something that sometimes can also be quite a tall order and a big responsibility to put on the burden of the artist, you know, like but like at the same time, like art itself, like what Sujin mentioned, is like the illusion of the restoration of the building is kind of like in that moment the building is restored in that fantasy of the artwork, right? And art is powerful in that way to show us possibilities, right? That maybe like it may not happen in real life, it could, but it may not, you know, but at least in that moment, you know, we can all see that fantasy of or that possibility, I guess, you know, to live at least that possibility for a moment, which is powerful in its own way. Yeah, and the whole like even sure your work like the like using the opera, the music, and the music itself is also something that is like talking about transcendence, right? The matter wanting to unite to God, and like it's something of a very transcendent thing, and it's in stark contrast and juxtaposition with like the reality of the issues that you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that also in my work there is like this will for me to connect with also humans and machines, and this whole the human voice is basically meeting the mechanical sound of the machines, and when they're put together, there is something new that's happening. There's like a new, like something that our ears maybe try to like understand how those two work, how they work together, the singing with the sound, and like in a way they create something new. Also visually, I hope so, that there's something really bizarre maybe in this performance and this position of the singer on top of this machine, and this whole scenario try to I think first of all do a visual impact, something with our senses, something with our emotions, like something that is not fully explained. And I think the other meanings maybe like traces, or like something that is adding up to the experience. I hope so. I mean, for me, it builds that way. So I think for me personally, it's very hidden, the political meanings, and not because I'm afraid or because it's something that happened naturally, something that is very not. I don't know if it's not that direct, and maybe the directness will come in the later on in the next phase of the work, and maybe not. But yeah, I think it's not, for me, it's not taken for granted that I'm doing work that automatically will have social impact, or will have a direct message, political message. I think that also for me personally, because I'm coming from such a harsh place in terms of, I mean, I live conflict just from living here in Tel Aviv, in Israel. And it's not easy. Like, and I'm not saying that I'm really a poor guy, but I just what I mean is that it's not easy to position yourself. It's not so easy to position yourself in a place where, okay, you should be an activist, an artist who's doing like a active role in his art, and deliver messages or deliver something very direct. Just I think living here is dictating so much that art sometimes maybe don't want to touch all the time the political aspect. Maybe not just escapism or running away necessarily, but like exploring different types of political engagement in art itself, in creating art. So it's not so direct, and it's not so
in your face.
yeah, in your face, or even as a creator, it's not like you don't necessarily know where to position yourself all the time. Like for me,
it's a constant negotiation. There are multiple entry points in starting. Like you mentioned, sometimes you start with like a sound idea or visual idea, maybe from the aesthetics. Like maybe sometimes it starts with maybe you reading a social issue. I mean, like there's multiple entry points.
Yeah, exactly. For me, that's exactly what happened, because the news came first, the political issue came first, or the social issue came first, but like in my mind, but it wasn't connected directly to a specific artwork. It was just came along and it connected in a different spot.
That's of your head.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Phumulani,
That's why we're making our work because we cannot explain in other ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting. Yes. Yes. Of course, there's different levels of engagement. I mean, it's just maybe just to emphasize on my previous point. Those like political nuances, those social nuances, they in time-based work it's already somehow assumed, or is like there, like whether directly or not. Hence, the kind of layering of an art piece makes it more interesting, so that the reach is not necessarily like really contrived. For example, with more documentary kind of ways of making filmmaking, if I may call it, there's also like a level of fictionalizing as well, like because at least the integration of both documentary and fiction becomes a space of creating something new, like to create new perspectives. And then I think also in a, like as existence of artists in like different social political contexts, like the way we respond or maybe the aesthetic value of the work, will be kind of different in texture, in narration, in forms of storytelling. So yeah, those kind of, for me at least, like the more layered an artwork is, the more interesting it also becomes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Phumulani, do you want to kind of talk a bit of because you Sujin and Shir has already like shown and talked about their art, and so would you want to kind of talk about what you did with power play and a bit of your art practice, so that we can kind of, the audience can kind of understand where you're coming from and what kind of art you do.
Yes. So the work I'm showing at Power Play is titled Notes from an Algorithmic Memory. In my work, I normally use archive images and some of the shots that I like take. So the project is not specifically related to Belgian Congo, but it started when I was in a residency in Belgium. Was in Belgium, in the city. There's a sculpture of Antigoon. It's like a fictional character that's like stands in the center of Antwerp. So the sculpture is like carrying a hand. So when I looked also some of the images around the previous regime, the Belgian regime, King Leopold's, the like to kind of, if the slaves didn't bring a specific quota of rubber, they used to cut their hands as a form of punishment. So the sculpture is like standing in the public space, and you kind of see this figure throwing the throwing the hand in the river. So for me at least, it was a kind of bizarre how these fictionalizing of both public space and archive images kind of came together. So I use in the work, I use some of the archive images, and then some of the shots are shot in the public space of Belgium. So already the work has more like a geopolitical, kind of dialogue in between both spaces. And obviously, it's not necessarily like an immediate connection of me being a Congolese. I'm not Congolese. I'm not Belgian or anything. But it's within addressing ideas of these kind of fleeting moments of different spaces, and how they kind of still being coexistent, because most of the images we still maybe not really see them quite widely. It's just a way to bring the invisible visible, and to also like encourage the other forms of looking. So yeah, the work is not necessarily like a documentary. It's more like an essay kind of work. And I collaborated with different artists, like through through my engagements and interactions in both spaces. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you, Phumulani. Sophia is trying to log in now. Because like she's trying to figure out her browser doesn't support like StreamYard, so she's trying to download Chrome, but she'll join us soon. Okay. Okay. I think we can kind of like while we wait for Sophie, we kind of talk about wait. Let's see. Okay, so maybe we'll talk about like how like in all of your works, there's a certain kind of theme in terms of certain reclamation. Like for example, Sujin, the buildings that have been abandoned, and for sure is a certain reclamation of like the the human the juxtaposition between like the the plight of the foreign workers and also like the whole like economic thing going on with like the purity of ascension of the in contrast with that opera song, right, with the song of the matter, reclaiming the human condition, reclaiming the dignity of man. And then also like for Phumulani, the certain amount of in a way reclaiming certain lost narratives, and also decolonizing certain narratives. So like would you like to kind of talk more about this notion of reclamation in your work?
I think it's interesting that also you brought this up again, because I think during the time of engaging with the work in South Africa, there was this idea of decolonizing the public space in relation to moving. I don't know if you guys are aware of like removing the colonial sculptures, like for example the sculpture of Cecil John Rhodes in Cape Town. So there was like a really heavy upscale of student movements that really emerged during that time around like 2014, 16. So that brought about different kind of ways of looking the public space, because it's somehow still remain intact in relation to addressing more issues of democracy, if I may say, although it's still kind of also not really a clear mandate in relation to like political situations. But that idea of re-narrating public spaces in relation to how we perceive it currently, in the moment, so yeah, that idea of the public space, it is a really kind of pertinent like issue. As well as more finding ways to kind of invest in new narrations. If we're speaking of ideas of democracy, how do we kind of form national narratives, which really speaks to the current moments that we speak, like we're living in, as opposed to still holding intact those previous, systems that don't necessarily work. They don't necessarily work. So yeah, for me, it was that kind of a starting point. Hence, the engagement. It became more easy because there was already something happening in South Africa with the student movements, and much of the students wanting to move the colonial sculptures out of the public side and museums into, I don't know, more like cemeteries, or have a cemetery of public, because it's more like a cemetery. So taking those sculptures out of the, but of course there were other political voices as to, okay, how do we then move, from that direction in relations to specifically honing, the not necessarily like the national narrative, but like a narrative that already addresses the current status quo, like my point of view in relations to working with those with the issues of public space in Belgium became an easy entry point, because there was already a conversation happening in South Africa.
Right. Okay. Hi, Sophia.
Hello.
Finally, we're all
You
united.
realize what happened? Because in Europe we have a time change, so our clocks move forward, and I didn't recalculate. So I was like, okay, it's 8 o'clock, that's fine. Instead it was 7 because our clock went.
The winter thing, the daylight saving winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure also got thrown off in Tel Aviv because of this.
So I've like literally rolled out of bed.
Yeah, so it's a good thing living in Singapore. You know, it's tropical. The clock stays the same all the time. We are in the equator.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome, Sophia. Yeah. So finally, we are all reunited. I think like we can just take a few steps back. And maybe Sophia can share about your work first, and then we'll go back to the discussion.
Yeah, sure. I'm really sorry I missed everyone talking about the work.
It's okay. We can talk more after this.
Don't worry. I'll watch my own talk again. Wait, I need to figure this out.
Okay.
Shall I share a screen? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my God. Sorry, my laptop is asking for a load of safety preferences.
Like we're all from different time zones. It's great, you know, it's great. I mean, the wonders of COVID, right?
Pardon?
And I said the wonders of COVID. It's like we are here like this now because of COVID.
Yeah. Can you all see my screen now?
Okay, wait. I need to. Are you sharing?
No, actually, I don't understand why though. Oh yeah. Okay, I think I'm sharing now.
Okay, I'll add it to screen. All right.
I'll put it in full screen. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So hello, my name is Sophia Moffa. So I'm Italian, and I came to study in the UK to do my graduation. Like my MA and my BA, I studied in Wales and Manchester. So this picture is from a performance I did in Bangladesh. It's called Memorandum of Understanding, and I did it with so I work both independently and as a dyad with another artist from Finland called Rika Enne, and that's mostly my performance practice. But I think from I sort of trained as a sculptor, but slowly moved on from sculpture. I do it still, but mainly for commissions and installation. But I moved on from sculpture mainly because I move around so much, and it's hard to keep all the stuff. So I do a lot of video and performance arts. And I think from my MA, I changed my practice to reflect very much what was happening around me. And it's not always like about like issues that are happening around the world. It can also be more emotional. So I have very experimental practice that bounces off a lot of what's happening. So in the message has already ceased to exist is a fairly short video of the sort of virtual assistant in the lift getting very confused that it can't fully close its doors because of the metal bar. And as it struggles to close its doors and leave off, it starts to mess up its words and it starts to say the wrong things while it's doing the opposite. So it'll say lift going up when it's actually opening its doors. And it'll say lift going down. It will start like honestly switching up its word. And I studied in a very strict corporate sort of university where the humans felt more like machines than the actual machine. So it's sort of switching up the human with the machine. I then, after leaving uni, sort of worked more as a performance artist and started probably working more on issues that was around the world. I'll start with this. So with this performance called Power, it's very linked to the experience of my current work in power play. As in, it comes from the same sort of experience that I had when I made this work. But in this performance, we were looking at the kind of laughter that happens not in form of happiness, but as a form of discomfort. So it's a kind of when you're in a when you're in an uncomfortable situation, sometimes laughter is like a defense mechanism, and they've done many experiments. So the lines that are drawn on our faces, they are from an experiment in the 60s, I think, after the Second World War, trying to work out why the Nazis sort of managed to get people to do such atrocities. And it is because there was such a strong power that they were just afraid. And they managed to get people to, like, so in the experiments, they managed to get people to give electric shocks to another person, and the lines showed on the face that a lot of the time the sort of defense mechanism was laughter.
Right.
So in the performance, Rika goes through a series of words that are trigger words for experiences I've had, in the hope to try and get me to laugh. So she'll shout them out over and over again. It's a bit hard to see all my pieces because they're all videos, but I thought they're a bit too long to show as videos. And it was interesting. So a lot of my works, I'm not trying to give any information that is direct. I want to just ask questions. And it was very interesting. The response after this performance from the women and the men was vastly different. And the women could directly connect to it. Because often, like, it was in a sense quite a feminist work, because any like form of molest or sort of stalking from men has this effect on women. They will and on people if they did it to others, that you tend to laugh as a defense mechanism. And the response from women was very clear on that, whereas the men had a more wide view of it. I'll just go through a few a bit faster. So this is a video I've not shown yet, that is using the poems of S.G. Sai Baba. That is a poet who's been kept in jail in India. And it's using one of his poems that talks about a prison guard, where he expresses that the guard is actually more of a prisoner than himself. And I use a child's voice to narrate the poem, but he follows it. Everything is said prior by a man's voice, so he's just repeating everything. And it's a sort of way of questioning, like, education. So every man that does atrocities now, or every woman that does atrocities now, was actually quite an innocent child at the time. So it's the hand that guided them to become that person. So that's Disturbing the King's Peace, because it's from the title is from a long time ago, when it was a crime in the West to disturb the king's peace, but is still in many countries, including the West, to go against your own government. And this poet, he's in jail for simply being an artist. Whereas if I talk against the government here, they don't care at all. I'm nobody to them. But in other countries, if you talk against your government, you end up in jail or worse. So it's also questioning, like, how much does our governments value us as artists, if some will imprison you and some will ignore you. It's like trying to understand that balance about who we are as artists and the power we have in changing things. Yeah, I'll go straight to my actual work. So the Traveler's Tree is the work I'm showing in Power Play. It's a sort of 20-minute long video that goes through a dinner conversation between like two middlemen, and they're discussing is a bit like just casual. It's not casual conversation, but it's just a dinner conversation like any other dinner conversation, except it is fairly focused on the fact they are mostly men, and I am actually the only woman in the room. When they sort of go through different traditions, but the most shocking thing is probably not the traditions that they have in Nigeria as they're talking here, or in Equatorial Guinea, is the laughter from the British side of how much they agree with sort of the treatment of women. When you would think, knowing the regulations in the UK and human rights, you would think they wouldn't have such a strong and affirming laughter. And whereas when he's talking about human rights, about prisoners or workers or the general population, they obviously don't have the same laughter, but it's still quite dismissive and accepted. Whatever the sort of practice is that they talk about. And it sort of comes to show how we as a country and as in general society is easy to accept someone else's pain, and how we won't like put our head out there to defend it or question it too much. In the talk, in fact, he writes, why would you control it? Why would you try and stop it? Because it actually helps someone to make more money or stay in power. Yeah, I think I'll stop there, because then maybe I'll bring it in like further in the talk. I don't want to take up. If you have any questions, and you can go ahead and ask me.
Yeah, I mean, like watching the video, like in live in the space, is really disturbing. I mean, I have like a lot of friends that like we were like sitting there, and then like I get what you mean by that uncomfortable laughter. I mean, like I have like female friends that we were like just sitting there watching, and they were like, "What is going on?" And then they were like, "Oh my god," because like there's some statements that are like really out there, but like the people are just, it's just like locker room talk, right? And they are like, oh, hee hee ho ho ho, and then the woman must cook, and then later like the man comes, if the man's friend comes, and they have to sleep with all the wives of the guy and everything. And like and then it's very interesting to watch the reactions of the people in the space. I mean, you're right, sometimes people laugh, and it's not necessarily like they're agreeing with whatever is being said, but
it is it's like this defense mechanism, and seemingly monkeys do it as well when they're afraid. They laugh.
Or like when you get like a sexual harassment remark, and then you're like, okay, like
exactly. Yeah, it's crazy that we're so developed, and yet that's like the first thing that comes out. Yeah. And you can actually hear my uncomfortable laughter in that conversation.
And it's kind of interesting, but do we think that like with this laughter, are we like normalizing these narratives in a way?
Well, I think it depends what kind of laughter. The laughter by the people in the conversation, that's not an uncomfortable laughter. That is, I'm enjoying this laughter. I want
genuine laughter, like locker room talk laughter. It's like like Trump saying like, "Oh, Brad, the lady with the pussy," and everybody's like, "Ha ha ha," you know, like the kind of laughter.
Exactly, basically like that. And look how easily we dismissed that as if it was, oh, it's not real, it's fake. But that's what people actually think, you know. We dismissed, well, in America, and I think even here it's like normalized. That's how men talk in the locker room. But it's, and they say, oh, it's just locker room talk, so it doesn't mean anything, but it does mean something. And you're still conversing with other men, you're still sharing your opinion, and men are agreeing.
But you're normalizing these conversations, so it's like it means something, right? Like this is acceptable to at least, at least in that situation, which is kind of disturbing.
Yeah.
But going back,
sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, about the question you asked before, if the uncomfortable laughter was sort of not aiding it as well. It's a hard question to answer because it probably is. Often people misunderstand that as agreement, as a yes, you know, as a consent. And it's far from a consent. But yeah, definitely, probably best not to laugh if one can avoid it. Yeah.
Okay, going back to the question that Phumulani has responded. I mean, you can come in again, but we are talking about like the notion of like reclaiming narratives or reclaiming certain like things like disadvantaged groups of people or lost narratives and in our art in different ways. And so like I'll open the question back up to the panel, and I think Sophia, you can also respond in terms of your art in your own way. Yeah.
Do I start?
Well, any of you can start.
Oh, okay. I'll let someone else talk for a while.
Okay, I can respond. I think the reclamation is in different aspects in my work. Can arise from different point of views. First of all, I think it's the reclamation of the stories, the narratives of those who found their death on those machines, and for all those disadvantaged groups, specifically the foreign workers in this context. But I think it's also, it talks about other subjects as well. For example, the reclamation of our beliefs, of the concept of sacrifice. What do we sacrifice for our beliefs? Thinking about religion, about God. I think it's also like it talks also about the relationship between humans and machines, and how our world is obviously getting more and more radical in terms of our interactions, human interactions, and everything, which is becoming more and more robotic in that sense. But I think my work does offer, maybe, I hope, some kind of new perspective on this too, because we know like that our world is becoming faster and faster, and the interactions are becoming more and more distanced, human interactions. But in a way, the machines in the work are a bit like, not like humans, but they have some kind of human element in them, maybe the way they move, the way they react to the person who sings, the way that they create this new image together with the human voice, together with the human figure. So there is something, I want to believe that there is something that is working together, and not necessarily this power relationship only. Who control the machine, the man, or the machine control the man? I think that there is some kind of play there. There's some kind of ongoing play, which altogether creates something in a conversation way, maybe, or in the together.
Yeah, I mean, together looking at the work is kind of a bit surreal, right? Like going back to the notion of fantasy, like what Sujin mentioned in your work, like is that whole fantasy setting, that whole like new world that you created. And when looking at like the whole interfacing between the humans and machine, and then with the added thing of the matter song of transcendence, then it just reminds me of the term the God and the machine. Have you heard of that before? Yeah. It's like it's really, really interesting, and definitely there is an element of play in there. It's not just directly commenting on power dynamics, but it's almost like this surreal space where elements come together in a playful way to create something greater than its part. The whole is greater than its parts. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, Sujin,
I think also what's interesting.
I just wanted to add a little bit about like Shir's video. I really appreciate watching the video, and then I wanted to talk about that. Like when I saw the video, that when all these machines were moving, I thought about this is like kind of like dancing or choreography. Like not only about music and sound, I thought this movement creates this kind of like choreographic like moments that like I was more curious about not only the machine, but like who are the people moving this, how this movement was organized, harmonized through the process. So I really could connect what Shir just mentioned to my impression when I watched the video. So just wanted to talk about it. And about this question, I think the biggest thing what I can answer is like about this imagination, that like what we don't have in near, but what I want to have or what the people want to have. Like we imagine it, but it means what we imagine something else than what we have means like we want to have change, right? But like what I did like with painting, like in the town, in many different places, I think I know, although this painting, I continue this painting every day, but it doesn't create like real building will be recovered on site, right? But these perpetual efforts, I think that's the thing that brought me the kind of, when I see this image of like when it's realized in my effort, and when I realize this imagination, it just gives me this like sublimation. Like I feel like I'm relieved, or I realize it inside of me, or at least in the form of art. So that was something for me. We realized what we imagine, what we don't have in mirror. That's the thing what I kind of wanted to recover.
I think Phumulani also wants to say something, right? And also, okay, before Phumulani comes in, I also want to talk about the notion of fantasy in relation to Sophia's work, because like I remember in the end, like the moderator kind of says, okay, this conversation is stays only in the room, right? And then like when you go back to the real world, or like the outside world, like it disappears or something. I forgot what that was, the exact words. Like I think Sophia, like you want to kind of talk more about that later.
Yeah. He basically asks the people around the table to not disclose any of this information. Also because they're doing a business deal, so they'd rather not have any like dirty information on the government. I think a lot of these business conversations ends in, I heard that a lot when I was there. They ask, please don't disclose this information. it's just for your enjoyment, really. That sort of really points out that it's not acceptable. This is not what you're supposed to be talking about.
So it's kind of,
but
the space is kind of like a suspended space where like where in that context like all these are acceptable, right? But like when you go out, it's like it's not.
Yeah, it's like time out from decency. But it's, in a way that is their fantasy. It is something it's a real fantasy though, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You've
because the funny thing is that actually the things that they talk about is even more real than the real outside, because we kind of censor ourselves in the real world, but in this kind of like suspended fantasy place where we can really be real and the real shit comes out, you know, what people really think.
Exactly. Things that are sort of hidden in fact, like this talk, they're hidden in the cracks. You don't hear it constantly. You kind of know it's happening, but it doesn't really come out in the media. And when you're far away from it, in a sense, it's blurry. Like, you know that's happening. It's far away. It's doesn't involve you personally. You haven't heard someone say it directly to you.
We know that like misogyny, things like that, is out there. People, it's just out there, but we just don't hear it directly in the real world. But
we probably, because of the lives we lead, I think we're fairly, everyone in this talk is fairly privileged. We probably just brush across these injustices and misogyny. We feel very small things from it, but obviously in other lives they feel it directly, and they probably don't even know it's happening, because that's the norm. So in a sense, it's our view of these things are actually the fantasy. I think it's not as real as it is.
Like we're living in the bubble of privilege.
Well, I think at least in the West, yes.
To that extent, we all have privilege. Like to be here, right? Talking over Zoom, having a computer, that's privilege.
Yeah. It is. Unfortunately, it shouldn't be, but it is.
Hey, Phumulani, you want to say something?
No, I think my train of thought got lost, but this was already what Sujin was speaking about, that, about Shir's work, about this idea of, choreography, so the ideas of the choreographic and the cinematic as well. I mean, the cinematic apparatus of already using the devices to kind of show, something, so it's just also an interplay between those kind of instances of thinking about the cinema at its kind of broader aspects within certain framing of one particular idea. So it's just like to respond to, I really like the kind of texture of like really using that cinematic device to isolate certain things, but also it's not necessarily a way to isolate as well, but in that idea of isolating, you are bringing across, those the people that actually are moving the machines and these like cranes, so I think Shir's work was also really interesting and really impactful in my own point of view regarding what also Sujin was speaking about between choreography and the cinematic apparatus, like how to really play with
Okay, I think like it's getting late, so I think we will have just one more question to everybody and we'll wrap it up. Is that okay? And I think that this last question is of course the elephant in the room, which is like things, I mean, we have touched on it, bits and pieces throughout the talk, but this is the question that is about art and relating to activism. And like, and how would you then, because we all talk about certain social issues, social political or social economical or social cultural issues in our work, and then like either bringing it to awareness, either like speaking for a certain group of people, and like, so how then would you position your art in relation to activism? And is it different? Is it is it a part of your art, or is it like is it important to actually enact social change? I mean, we kind of touched on all these things a bit before, but this is the question in itself. Okay, yeah, this is a loaded question, a heavy one. Who wants to start first?
I'll go.
Yeah.
So I think maybe I have quite a. I listened to a talk yesterday and I agreed with
Anthony.
Yeah, with Anthony.
Yeah.
In a way, maybe not so drastic, but I did agree with him a little bit. That I think to call at least what I do an activist is a little superficial. And I think maybe that is the problem with people and activism right now. So I was once told by a friend that everyone should be an activist, right? And in a sense, that would be, yeah, great. But the problem with activism now, I think, is that if you share a post about some injustice, or you take part in a protest, or you sort of spread the word, and it's very easily done on social media, then all of a sudden you're an activist. I don't think so. I think you're a human being, a decent one.
Yeah.
An activist is someone who actively campaigns and doesn't only sign petitions, they make petitions. They go on and they press on to issues, and they go and question the person who is doing it, and they won't stop until something happens. It's a dangerous job in some countries. It's not as easy as sitting here and making some work about. Sure, I mean, I've been in dangerous situations, but I was not pressing on anything. I wasn't questioning anything. I'd like to become an activist, but I don't think I am one. And my art reflects what is happening. And unfortunately, what is happening is often unjust. But unlike activism, my art at least tries to not give any answers. It's not saying this is what should happen. This is what's happening. What do you think? It's raising questions. It's giving you a piece of information, but not giving you the answer. And that's not activism. That is just information in a sense. So I would say it's related, as in it's talking about social injustice and human rights and whatever. But it's raising questions rather than giving answers, and it's not pressing on. And a bit like Anthony was saying yesterday, it's where the sort of sphere it's going out in is incredibly small bubble of the art world that is probably already highly educated. It probably knows this is happening. They might be the cause of it, they might not, but the artist is not taken super seriously, at least not in this country where I am. Not in either of my countries, that is Italy or Britain. But if you lived in another country, say like in India, where this poet expressed his feelings and the government felt endangered by them, and all of a sudden you find yourself in jail, then that's a different story. So it depends what kind of artist you are and where you live. And what is the country that you're mostly talking about and you're living in, that is listening to you. Yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you, Sophia.
Yes, I think I agree with Sophia. Largely. I think, but also maybe yes. I agree with by virtue of work being speaking about ideas of human rights, social injustices, already assumes an activistic position. Although in hindsight is not necessarily like overt, as being active, so, but in hindsight, I feel like it has an activist potential, like work has a potential of having an activistic position, but already it's not necessarily like vested on the artist, because we try to isolate ourselves really with some of the things that we kind of make as well. But the question often comes like, your position as an artist. So in context of South Africa, activism has been kind of part of our lived experience. Artists are insisting in speaking out either through their work or defending their work within certain issues, which are happening. So yeah, I would say yes, my work has an activistic potential, but in a sense that I would campaign. Maybe in some protest I'll show up, and do those kind of really small scale. But it's often not too also risky that you would go to a point of threatening your own life, as well at the same time. But it's that the idea of being aware of different positions of, for example, in 2012 in South Africa, the Marikana, where the miners were protesting to increase their wages, and then the strike went for kind of a long period of time, and then they just wanted to end the strike as soon as possible because it was already impacting on the economy. So like the miners, around 32 miners were shot. It kind of concealed the event, just like really, it was just the end point of the whole protest happening. So in that context, what was also really apparent in my own point of view was the kind of ways the media and the government kind of tries to narrate the story, like who was wrong, who was not, and that immediately encourages people to kind of have dialogue, to speak about it, and set their position of what they think, So by implication, most of the people or the audiences or people that encountered what was happening were forced to speak out, to raise these questions, either through making work. Journalists, some of the journalists published books around how the status quo kind of happened and those kind of things. So yeah, it depends already in the context and the particular political event that happens. But at the same time, I feel, because most of the work kind of happens posthumously after the thought, after the action, it's also really reactionary in one part. The fact that it has already happened, so what's the point of actually making work about it? At the same time, so it's that level of at least finding those traces that are left in the back without really conversing about it to bring them inside. So yeah, it is, at least there is an assumption of activism somehow in maybe what I try to do in my work as well.
And it goes back to what Sophia also mentioned, like it's it's not just the work we make, but also in what context we make the work, right? Like which country we are doing the work in, like sometimes doing some work, and even in Singapore will get you into trouble, and like when the police come and you get into jail for it, like would that work consider activism? Like it's a fine line too, but at the same time, it also all boils down to whether when the artist makes the work, like did he actually even consider the possibility of that too? And yeah, but so like, and Shir and Phumulani, I know that you guys live in places where there's like conflict. You live in conflict, and therefore like the context that in which you guys make work is so different compared to someone who lives probably in somewhere a lot more peaceful. Yeah, so like definitely, like I appreciate what Sophia and Phumulani you guys can share.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's being said here, and I can relate. And I think I've talked a little bit before about it, about like how the place you create in, how the place you're living in, so it affects everything, obviously. Obviously, also this privileged position of being an artist, and for me, it's very tricky, if I'm being honest, because like to see myself as an artist and also as an activist. I mean, I'm so evolved. I'm so invested in this conflict in this local conflict in my country between Israelis and Palestinians, and you know that it's extremely difficult to criticize the government here. It's happening, and it's happening, and artists pay a price, obviously, when they do it. Not just artists, obviously, anyone. We have here a lot of discussions about freedom of speech and about how art can use as a platform, and it did, and it did used as a platform in a lot of ways to mediate and to create this gate to the other people, to the Palestinians, you know, to try to create connections which are not linked with governments, and a lot of the times it creates very unique actions and very interesting connections and relationship between people. First of all, from both sides of the conflict. For me personally, it's a direction that I'm just starting to explore in terms of getting activism into my art, because I experience it so much outside my art, and I live it and I breathe it, and I'm in a tough position, you know, because I think it's very complicated in both sides, but I do criticize my government, and I find it really difficult with so many, let's say, direction of ways that the direction of action that that the government is taking, and decisions that they're making. I think my country is also very divided in like a political sense. It really is like half of the people are really supportive of the government and really supportive of the actions, and really has this national spirit, very fighter, in a very fighter mood most of the time, and the other half is more criticized of the government and wants peace and want to be with peace with the other side, and want to end the occupation and want to end the situation where people are living horribly because of decisions of government, and because of an endless historical fight between them about lands and more. But I have to admit that it just the art can make difference, in my opinion, and art can make change. But for me, it's something that I'm really cautious about. Not necessarily because I'm afraid, but because I really want to do it right, and I want to see how can I do it without getting so hurt, not just by governments, but also just to keep everything open in my art, and just to keep on exploring more and more. And it happens for me. Like I discover more and more layers in terms of activism inside of the artistic work, and it happens slowly, but I feel that it's going there. I hope so. So that's my take on it.
Thank you, Shir.
Sure.
Yeah, I think, like in general, like I really appreciate all other artists talked about. Like I really agree most of them, and yeah, it's really good to talk about all these different layers on it, like through the practice. what I was I thought about that, like when I see like awareness and like this activism, when we connect this together. For example, if I see an artwork about like, I don't know, example, like somewhere one issue in one place in, let's say, in one country, I don't know how to say example. And then I don't know if I see this artwork, then how I can connect with this specific issue. But one thing is that it gives us to understand. Yeah, I remember that like long time ago, I saw an artwork about Indian like ecological issue in India, and then I cannot do anything about this issue in India. Like I don't know what to do with it, but I could like see things around me in a new perspective, right? Because I appreciated this work and I appreciate this perspective and how this artist wrote about it and how he or she shared it with us. So in that way, that's what we were talking about, like not only awareness, but it's something about reshape the perspective of people. In that way, it's activism, but once we connect it into one specific issue with artwork, maybe it's a little bit different story. I think that's what I was kind of like for the last years I was struggling, and then I somehow tried to open new approach to the issue with like, yeah, maybe I can create this surreal image or my imagination in real on site than visual result in specific format. But I'm still questioning about it, like if it's really also because it's not only about like it's effective and it's like really creating a social change in here or not, but what is important is that it's something I can do it great and something what I can continue in my life. That was something I continuously brought into my practice.
It's like it goes back to the whole notion of fantasy in art, right? I mean that, like the sublime or like that surreal space where art creates to kind of explore possibilities, and like what Sophia says, raise more questions. Maybe not necessarily giving answers, but also bringing questions to the forefront, making people think, and also maybe proposing different ways of seeing or possibilities, even though these may not be enacted in the real world, but like in the art space, there's that space for us to, like what Sujin say, imagine. And I think that's like the power of art in a way. And it's kind of different from activism where like we are proposing this change and this change is real and we want to enact the change in the real world in a very sort of methodical in a certain sense. Or like art, there's multiple entry points and multiple exit points. There's like it's so I really connect with a lot of what all of you guys are saying. Like, there are definitely like intersections between activism and art, but also like art is also not exactly activism, and activism is not exactly art. So it's like, but it's really happy to hear from all of you. I think like it's quite late now. We're going to wrap it up. So any last comments from anybody before we want to? Oh, I think it'll be nice if all of you can kind of share a bit of like what have you been doing since Power Play, and maybe any other things that is coming up for you, so that we can direct the audience to kind of check it out. Like maybe if you have a show coming up, something like that. Like you feel free to share, and then we'll wrap up the session.
Well, we've just been put in lockdown again from Thursday, so
Oh no.
all my shows got cancelled. Yeah, I had a show in Berlin, but Berlin is also in lockdown, so it got cancelled. Yeah, I think the whole of Europe is like it's arrogance refuses to choose the right method to deal with this virus. So it's just studio work, and yeah, it's time to make more work. And when they finally get a grip on it, hopefully everything will open up again. Yeah.
That's great.
I'm taking part in a online exhibition, as you know, most of the things are online these days. So, but yeah, we've entered level 5, which is also, I mean, it's just already daily life as it happens. You know, it's still summer, which is nice. So yeah, but most of the exhibitions are still happening online, some offline, but of course with restrictions. So I'm taking part in a festival called Fagugesi. So with the collective that I'm part of, Preempt Group. So we're showing three films that we've been developing for the past 2 years. So yeah, you can check Fakugesi festival. It's called FAKUGE.
You can type it in the chat so that we can all go and look at it. You know, Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll do that. Right. Awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah. So it's happening until the end of November.
Okay. Sure, Sujin.
Yeah, I'm working on a show that will supposed to take place in Jerusalem, but because of COVID, now everything is postponed. So just waiting for specifically here in Israel, we are going out of the lockdown, but I'm sure we will end up again in lockdown because it's just you have to get used to it until everything is done. So I'm just working now on a new installation that is combined with one sculpture and one video. So I'm working on that and trying to do everything I can in these conditions for the show. I believe that it will take place in January, but it all depends on what will happen in terms of the COVID. So
all the best.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm supposed to go back to Korea this month and November, and then we'll do the project that I mentioned in town, in development town in Korea. It's due until the end of next year, so we will see what is going to happen there.
Okay. Then looking forward. Okay, yeah, thank you everybody. I mean, like, it was such an honor to have you guys here with us in this afternoon. Like, hearing from you is like, I feel like so much compassion and empathy, you know, like talking about these issues and, you know, in your art and speaking up for people and things lost through the cracks, you know. So really, really, really honored, really, really happy to have spent the afternoon with you guys. And so sorry about the time. Yeah, like the confusion of all the time zones, but we learn. Yeah.
But that was cool that everybody is here now, right?
Yeah, in the end we are here. Yes.
I think it's a really good ending.
Yes. Okay, like we'll definitely, like, hopefully one day we'll meet in like person. Yeah, like after all the COVID and everything.
I've met Sujin in Switzerland. We're doing a thing together. You remember Sujin?
Of course, I was very happy.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
wow.
Sophia Moffa. Yes, yeah.
It was amazing. Yeah, I remember your performance there in the mountain.
Yes.
You were in the top of the mountain in doing like this performance with our local people, like playing music together, and
yeah.
Wow. Yes. Next time we shall meet and do stuff. Okay, yeah. I will not keep you guys any longer. Yes. Take care, Sujin. It's like, thanks for staying up so late. It's like 4 a.m. there right now.
I'm really like, yeah, I'm really grateful to be part of this, and I really wanted to also say that I really appreciate looking at all you guys' work. That was really cool.
Yeah, amazing.
I'd like to say the same. I really enjoyed everyone's work, and it's really great honor to be here, and really enjoyed everything. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you all for being part of Power Play. Like so honored to have you, talented people and compassionate people with us. Yeah. Okay. So,
Okay, bye. Ciao, ciao.
good morning, good afternoon, good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.